everybody, and now that my embargo is officially up for everything, I can talk about absolutely everything. I wanted to do a video that was specifically about the conversations that I had with developers at Bungie at the Destiny Community Summit. Now, I did do a stream yesterday that was basically a giant Q&A about Gambit and also the questions that were asked and the answers that we got from Bungie. So if you want to see a 5-hour version of what you're about to listen to, you can check the description. I'll have a link to the VOD, but that goes into pretty much every single question that was ever asked at Bungie. In this video, I'm going to be covering the questions and the answers that I felt were the most impactful or the most important, or they're covering something that we haven't yet heard about from Bungie themselves. So hopefully you guys get some of your questions answered. You get to realize what the Community Summit was all about. I'm basically just hoping that this video is helpful in some kind of way. So first thing that I want to start off talking about is I think the conversation that most of us walked away from the summit feeling the most confident about, and this was kind of the conversation that made us realize fully what this summit was all about, and that is the conversation that was about random roles. So the Sandbox team came to us with a plan for random roles on day one. The suggestion was that one perk on the gun would be a random role, and pretty much everybody, almost everyone, 99% of people were not happy with that. We didn't think that it was going to be exciting enough for bringing random roles back. You tell the community, hey, random roles are back, and then this is what they get. They're not going to be very excited about that. From us saying that this idea isn't what we want with random roles, we then had a big roundtable discussion of why we like random roles in the first place. What are the feelings that we're trying to achieve with the random roles? Does the positive of finally getting your god roll to drop outweigh the negatives of grinding for so long and getting disappointed with not getting the role that you want? From this conversation, which like I said happened on day one of the summit, the Sandbox team went away and came up with design goals for random roles, which they presented to us on day two. All of us were very, very happy with those design goals that were presented to us. The devs even said that these design goals that we've come up with together, that we all worked on, we were all a part of, would most likely become the goals that they use to actually create the random roles system. So just to let you guys know what that actually means, it's much easier to get ideas from someone that help you make design goals than a very, very, very specific idea and a specific answer, because that makes sure that you guys are on the same page. Because what they can do as developers is they can be like, okay, well, people want to have this feeling, they want to have this feeling, and this feeling, this feeling. These are the things that we need to hit for this system to work. And then they can go and do their job that they are qualified to do and go and create something that hits those kinds of feelings. So the kind of feelings that we wanted at the summit from random roles was, you know, you make a YouTube video of, oh my gosh, I finally got this perfect god roll sniper, which I have done before, and Twitch chat going insane at, oh my goodness, I can't believe you finally got that. And then people who aren't streamers or YouTubers, you get to go into work or class the next day, or you call your friend or you text your friend and you're like, I finally got this gun that I've been grinding for with the perfect roll. And it doesn't even have to be one set perfect roll, right? It just has to be the thing that you find unique. You want to have your own gun that is yours, that is the perks that you want. It makes it feel more personable for you, and it's exciting when you finally get it. So with the Sandbox team having those design goals, knowing that that's what we want from random roles, they were able to work on the system. Now, I have no idea what the system is that they finally decided on, but I definitely came away from that conversation feeling like we were on the same page of what we wanted from the random roles system. Another very long conversation was that of time to kill. This was something that I think most people there wanted to talk about and wanted to see some kind of change too. It was a huge discussion that happened multiple times. Now, when we initially talked to the Sandbox team about time to kill, they did initially say that they wanted to see how the weapon slot system was out in the wild. Like, do we still feel that we need to have a faster time to kill when we have these one-shot weapons and all this kind of stuff? But recently on Twitter, there was a tweet that says that they are actively tuning the time to kill every day, as well as the ammo economy, because these two things definitely go hand in hand. If you have people running around with shotguns and snipers that are up all the time, but are quote-unquote primary, such as our hand cannons and pulse rifles and stuff like that, cannot keep up with someone running at you with a shotgun. If you can't kill that person before they close that gap and shotgun you, no one is going to bother using any of those weapons. Everyone's just going to use a shotgun and a sniper. That's all they're going to have. Shotgun, sniper, and then rocket or something like that. So it looks like they are trying to find that sweet spot. They are adjusting time to kill right now. This was said on Twitter. Again, this was kind of a different conversation at the summit. It was like, we want to see what it's like with the weapon slots and see how that feels. Clearly something doesn't feel perfectly perfect with the current time to kill and with the new weapon slots. So Bungie are actively working on finding the sweet spot for the time to kill, as well as finding the sweet spot for the ammo economy to try and make sure that that feels good. My guess is that we're going to end up having a time to kill that is more similar to Graviton Lance and Vigilance Wing, and kind of bringing weapons up to that level. I think if they did that, I mean, that would be a significantly faster time to kill than if you're using your hand cannons and stuff like that. So we'll see what ends up happening. This was a very, very long conversation, and we kind of were told, well, we'll wait and see what the weapon slots feel like in the wild, but now that's actually totally changed. So I guess that conversation's kind of null and void now. Anyway, there you go. They're working on tuning it. Time to kill is getting tuned. I don't know what it's going to end up as, but it is actively being worked on every day. Now, this next one might not be a huge deal for a lot of people, but if you know anything about me, it is a big deal for me, and it's the one thing that I talk about a lot, along with capes and movement modes, and that is in-air accuracy. To me, it just makes sense that the ability to be accurate in the air in a game that gives us these cool movement modes set in space, being accurate in the air just makes a lot of sense. Call me crazy, but it just makes sense to me. Of course, I brought this up with Bungie and was able to hear why there isn't 100% in-air accuracy on every single gun. When they tested giving every weapon in-air accuracy, the game just became about flying above a door the entire game, and it made the combat very one-dimensional. People only wanted to be in the air. They didn't have any of this sliding and running and then jumping. It was just everyone is in the air. From this answer, we then delved into, well, how could we add more in-air accuracy into the game for players who really enjoy that playstyle without making the gameplay so one-dimensional. We discussed there being mods that you can put on guns that added in-air accuracy. We talked about adding Icarus back into the game, exotic armor pieces that make all weapons in the air have accuracy. And then we discussed my personal favorite option. You don't have to agree with me, but this was my personal favorite option, which would be making in-air accuracy its own viewable stat in-game, or have it be a part of the handling stat. So this would mean that yes, you can have very high in-air accuracy, but you will be sacrificing something else, such as range or reload speed, for example. Making it a choice for players that really do appreciate being able to jump around and shoot things to be able to choose that playstyle. Whereas if someone who doesn't like doing that at all, they'll be like, this has no range. This has absolutely zero reload speed. This is terrible, the recoil is awful, but for those players who really do want to jump around and be accurate in the air and they want a gun to do that, they have the option of choosing that with sacrificing other things. I personally really like that. I would love to see them add something like that in the game, because right now it's like, do you want to use an SMG or sidearm? Because those are pretty good in the air, but your hand cannons, oh, not so much. I would like to have the option of being like, this pulse rifle has really high in-air accuracy, I'm gonna use this, because that's how I like to play. Adding more options is always good, and I personally liked that one out of all of the other options. Another thing that I wanted to find out about was trials. What the actual hell is the plan with trials? Because we haven't heard about this at all. I think that all of us as a community can safely say that trials is nowhere near what it was in D1. When House of Wolves came out and trials dropped, it completely changed the game. It exploded it on Twitch. It changed many people's lives. There was this exciting thing that people could do every weekend with their friends. It just completely changed Destiny. It was a major addition to Destiny. It was a unique experience. It didn't have anything in common with other modes in the Crucible. But now in D2, it's basically just competitive with different loot. Elimination, I personally really liked Elimination as a game mode. It made for very exciting games, and those exciting games happen frequently, whereas Survival and Countdown, I don't personally think really achieve that. Not to mention the whole loot of Trials isn't very enticing for a lot of players. There's not a weapon or an armor piece that make people want to jump into Trials over and over again to try and get that one thing they've wanted for so long. We don't have adept weapons. Even the ornaments are, I know this is personal preference, but they don't look that great. There's no armor there, and I'm like, holy macaroni, that's amazing. It doesn't have any interesting perks on the armor. And like I said, there might be a gun that you want to get just because you want to try it out or you've heard it's pretty good, but there's nothing unique about the Trials weapons. We did bring this up at the summit, and Bungie said to us that they are also not happy at all with the way that Trials currently is. When we brought up all of our concerns and issues with Trials, Bungie agreed with everything that we said, and I'm sorry I don't have more details on what exactly is going to happen with Trials. I don't even know if they're 100% sure what they want Trials to be at the moment, if I'm honest. I think it's going to be a case of completely overhauling what Trials is. I think it's going to be making it its own game mode, a whole new loot system, making a whole new bounty system for Trials. I think it's going to be a complete overhaul. And this is not from the summit. I haven't been told this at the summit. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know if there's going to be time to do that for Forsaken. I don't. I actually have a feeling in my bones that Trials is going to have a complete overhaul in maybe the December DLC. That's when it comes out. I'm not saying that you have to buy the DLC to get the Trials overhaul. I'm saying that when that next season hits, I feel like that's going to bring the complete overhaul to Trials. I don't personally think it's going to be in Forsaken, which I love Trials and I want it to be exciting, but luckily we do have Gambit coming, which is absolutely freaking amazing. But if it's going to take a longer time to get Trials perfect and bring me that D1 experience of Trials again, that's what I want. I'm not saying it has to be exactly like D1, of course, but when I went into Trials, there was so many exciting moments. I wanted to go flawless to try and get that thing that I wanted for so long. I loved taking people flawless. Right now, it's nice that I was able to take someone flawless for their first time, but I don't feel like they're necessarily getting anything super amazing out of it. There's nothing that they can necessarily show off and be like, yeah, I went flawless. So I don't have any information on exactly what is happening to Trials, but I can definitely say that Bungie is not happy with the way Trials is, and they 100% want to change it, and I personally think it's going to be a giant overhaul. So I know that doesn't shine a lot of light on Trials, but we haven't heard any discussions about Trials whatsoever, like at all. Not in the slightest. So I wanted to relay to you guys that Bungie's not happy with the way Trials is. Don't think that they're like, yeah, Trials is freaking perfect. Let's leave it like this, because that is not the case at all. Another really big conversation that a lot of people brought up, and I specifically had a very in-depth conversation about, was making armor more meaningful. Meaningful? Making us actually care about armor again. In our group, we actually had a very interesting conversation because we had groups with completely different opinions from one another about armor. We were discussing how raid armor used to make us more efficient at doing the raid. You'd have hold this thing and you move faster. While holding this thing, you take less damage. We would be going into Vault of Glass and put all of our VOG armor on, and it was like we were suiting up together for this awesome adventure. We have none of that anymore. This is when one group said that they actually don't want that. They want to gather the armor through the world and their experiences and their adventures in the world, and they can put together an armor set that they personally really like. So you might have someone who, I really like this Iron Banner helmet, but I also like this Trials cape, and I also like these raid pants. They want to be able to look unique and establish their own look for their Guardian. They don't want to be forced to wear raid armor that maybe they don't like, or they don't want to be forced to wear Trials armor that they don't like when they do Trials. So, from this conversation, we tried to come to some kind of middle ground. And I brought up, how about raid mods? How about we use the mod system to create these experiences? You could have raid mods, PvP mods, gambit mods, trials mods, mods that drop from that specific activity that you can put on any armor that you want. So you can still have those meaningful and exciting perks, but if you are someone who likes to mix and match and you don't want to look like everyone else when you go into a raid, you don't have to do that, but you can still have those perks that are going to make you more efficient in the raid. You can create your own armor, your own gambit armor, or you could wear the raid specific armor and have all of the raid mods on. You could do whatever you want. It enables you to play the way that you want, having meaningful perks, but still be unique looking if that is important to you. Or if you want to put your trials armor when you go trials, put your gambit armor when you want to do gambit, and have those perks, you also can do it that way. You can play however you want. And this conversation was something that I felt very happy about during the summit. We made it very, very, very clear that we want armor to matter. And we made it very clear that we want to have options. I, of course, can't say that this means that this exact thing is going to be put into the game. But I felt like this conversation was heard. The devs were asking us questions, we were asking them questions, and it definitely felt like we came to an understanding of one another and what we want from the game. And I said, this will also make mods actually be something that people want to chase. You see an exotic mod drop from a raid and you know that's going to be a raid mod, you get excited about it? I don't know. I personally really like that system. I loved having raid specific perks. I think that it made it really exciting when you got that piece of raid armor. If you are raiding a lot, you get armor that makes you be better at doing the raid. I think that just makes sense. So I would love to see that come back, and if it could come back in this kind of way to where you can look unique if you want, or you can wear your raid armor, I think that would be great. Now, the last conversation that I want to talk about is just generally about movement modes. And what I mean by that is, in Destiny 1, we had exotic armor like Twilight Garrison for Titans, and if you were a competitive Titan player, most likely you were using Twilight Garrison in PvP. We also had something like Bones of Ao for Hunters, and pretty much you used Bones of Ao if you wanted to be competitive in the Crucible as a hunter. Now, what I brought up is movement modes in general. Are you willing to add more movement modes? And if you create an exotic piece of armor that becomes such a staple and such a must-have on that character, have you thought about just putting that into the game? So I know, of course, Warlocks have Icarus Dash, which is like a nerfed Twilight Garrison, but have you thought about having the base movement of a hunter be Bones of Ao movement? Have you thought about, if this thing turns into a must-have movement for a character, just making it a part of the character? And that was definitely something I wanted to talk about because I think it kind of just makes sense. If you have an exotic that feels so good, and when you use it, you feel like that is how this character is supposed to be played. Like when I used Bones of Ao, that felt how hunters are supposed to feel. I was fast, I was nimble, I could change directions in the air very easily. That is how I personally felt hunters should feel. And the response to that was, yeah, that's something that we could totally look at. We could see, okay, we brought in this exotic and people love the way it feels on that character. Maybe we should just try and incorporate that into just the base character movement. This is now part of a Titan's kit, having Icarus Dash, essentially. This is now just how hunters jump. So it was very nice to hear that the Sandbox team is willing to look at that in the future if they put something in the game that then becomes such a staple of that character. They can think about evolving that into just being a base part of the character's movement. So I think that is pretty much it. Of course, we just talked for 2 days straight. That's all we did. So I can pretty much guarantee that if you were thinking, oh, I wonder if they talked about this at the summit, it was brought up at the summit. There was a pretty large group that was invited to the summit of all backgrounds. You had streamers, you just had the hardcore players, you had just fans of Destiny, you had forum moderators, you had a pretty good group there, and everything was brought up. That's all we did, was talk for 2 days. So I hope you found some of this helpful, just hearing about how our conversations went, and maybe you found out a little bit more information about something that you didn't necessarily know before. Again, I did answer an absolute buttload of questions in my Twitch stream yesterday, so if you do want more details and you want to have that in the background while you're cooking or taking a shower or whatever it might be, that link will be in the description if you want to learn even more stuff that was talked about at the summit, and also Gambit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll speak to awesome people later. Bye.